I've actually found this Corrupt Practices Act, but there's also a Corrupt and Illegal Practices Act as well, but it's actually not on the Parliament website, and I'm not surprised why, actually. They don't like publishing stuff that helps you out, or that really helps you out. So, it says here, for corrupt practices, the person must be proven as a defendant doing election petitions where it is being proved that a candidate, so that could be Khan or Sue Hall, is having his election carried out by a committee on certain or certain canvassers. Those canvassers do something which, if the candidate is responsible for, it will invalidate the election, and it is held as responsible for it in the sense of making the election is dependent upon it. So Sue Hall is actually congregating and hanging round with all these Stop ULEZ crew who are actually helping her do her canvassing, and they're not officially appointed, like not for the vehicles or for the campaign. And they're actually all now saying vote Sue Hall. Now, I actually only thought that it really matters when you are broadcasting. And from what I read in the earlier act, it's talk for the Representation of the People Act. It's looking like it's foreign broadcasts, but this is why I'm raising up Jacob Rees-Mogg for his GB News. I think Mogg is getting self-publicity from GB News, but it's coming from America. YouTube is provided from America, and that is what makes it illegal. And the thing is that it doesn't matter if it's for petitions, because you're not getting any assistance. You've got to do it all yourself. With elections and referendums, it's been obtained, and it's meant to be fairly government run. With a petition, the government aren't helping you out with the petition. You've got to get other people to help you in order to make the government help you. And then once the government are helping you, then it has to be run under a fair system. Now, the thing is that, so therefore, you've got full immunities and protections and enforcement, because you've got to do it. The citizens have got to do the casework themselves. Once they get the casework submitted and the government act, it's a bit different, because the government are going out of their way to ask everyone for you, like a public consultation. When you're petitioning the government for something, once you have got the support of the people, then you get the assistance, and then it is to be run fairly after that point. Well, it's not that it's not being run fairly, it's just the fact that you've got to do all the work yourself, but including in investigations. I've just found out in this bit the exact information I'm looking for. This is a book, actually, that covers this Corrupt Practices Act, and it's a guy who actually run petitions. Election petitions. This guy who wrote this book, he's actually a guy who, he's like an organizer of the whole, petitioning elections, and he's writing out lots of his accounting experiences and so forth. I'm not going to read the entire book because I don't want to, but I'm just looking for things that I need to know and learn in there, which helps because it's got searchable at the moment. So with election petitions, particularly to Parliament, it is a special legal procedure, even for prosecutions, and it's meant to be in the High Court, although it says they can have other courts doing it, but the Attorney General's got to action it, and the Chief Crown Prosecutor, and also if you're a witness giving evidence, if you're called as a witness giving evidence for the prosecution, remember, right? You've got witness protection, and you get a certificate of anonymity, which it says it says in brackets something separate for criminal, but it does say that you're not accountable in those proceedings for any criminal action. I'm not sure if it stops you from getting prosecuted in any other proceedings, but from those proceedings of indemnity. So the evidence that you give in that court can't be used in evidence in another court. And I think that means that people involved in those proceedings cannot give evidence to the police or another court. I think that's how it happens. Effectively, you're in connection with that casework, in those proceedings, you've got an immunity. It does refer to privilege as well. It says that you're not allowed to use the excuse of privilege. Well, I'm guessing that probably could mean, like, you know, if there were people, because elections are in and around people already in government, aren't they? So maybe if someone from the House of Lords or Parliament ends up somehow as a witness, they can't use their privilege apparently, and they're not allowed to not answer questions. They've got to answer questions in it as well, but they get this certificate of immunity. Now, it's because you are a witness. Now, I think that must be the same as, because you're on the side that's bringing the case. So I'm pretty certain that, I'm quite certain that it's a little bit like the police officer's protection, basically, because he is a witness and he's apprehending criminals. And he might, have to, when he goes to court, say that, we had to go speeding or break the law or break a window or whatever. So he's not criminally liable when he gives evidence. Well, that's what he's doing. He's not only giving evidence, giving statements, he had to get the evidence. He's not only giving the evidence in a statement, possibly immunity, he had to do actions to obtain that evidence as well. He had to engage in activities to obtain the evidence that he's giving. And some of those activities broke the law, like breaking a door down or breaking a window or speeding or whatever it was. That is to obtain the evidence. So in connection with that set of proceedings for that court, right? So in those proceedings, now, I actually think now that I've just clicked that if someone else wants to prosecute him for breaking their window, maybe they can prosecute him or challenge him in another court, but not in those proceedings when they're doing the proceedings against that other thing. But the thing in court is you're meant to, all facts and circumstances are meant to be taken into consideration to do with the thing and dealt with at once. So I don't know why anyone would take you to court in another instance or not. It kind of seems complicated, but they raise the matter of privilege. So why would they raise that matter? Well, because there would be people claiming it. Well, you wouldn't be claiming it if it didn't exist. It's actually raising the subject of this book. It raises privilege, and that people may be wanting to use it or might have it, and it's around the subject of petitions. So, and the thing is, with the Jeremy Johnson KC case with Hanningfield, that's what that case was about, privilege, and whether he had it or not, and to what extent that to what extent the privilege, how far the privilege extended to. Sorry. I'm going to finish. I'm not going to read this entire book, but I'm going to search the whole book for informations. But this bit here, you see, when I was doing my petitions, I didn't really have anything to do with elections or anything like that. And then I started doing Bandcamp, and to be honest, it was only because of like Rees-Mogg, really. I think I was just doing like kind of petition. All my Bandcamp musical petitions or audio petitions are petitioning the government for something. It's nothing to do with elections. But then I think it probably was Rees-Mogg. I started going on to the subject of, political parties. And then you end up kind of like supporting or opposing political parties. Now, the thing is, that's what Extinction... this is what Stop ULEZ have started doing in the mayoral election. And I think when you're broadcasting, I think you can do it if it's in England, but not from overseas. But the thing is, all these platforms are provided from overseas, and Mogg knows that. And I think that he thinks, well, if I'm in trouble, everyone else is. But then there's something to do with the canvassing. Now, I think you are allowed to have your own placards and things like that, but you're not meant to be helping or assisting candidates. And Sue Hall is kind of... I don't think that they're going around their own devices at the moment. You've got these candidates who are hanging around with a lot of people, and they're not officially declared as part of their team or whatever, or under the campaign, and they're not declared because they're not acting on behalf of Susan Hall. Because if Susan Hall has a vehicle, it's got to be declared to be being used on behalf of Susan Hall, even if it picks people up. And these people she's got all these canvassers around her, and they clearly are helping her. I think that invalidates the Mayor of London election. But also because Sue Hall was under that petition from Tim Rowling, and she was meant to give that petition, the title of it's addressed to Parliament, and this is the whole thing with Sunak. There's enough signatures on there to get a resolution from Parliament, and they're not giving the resolution because they're saying, well, if you vote for Sue Hall, she'll give the resolution. Well, that's a blackmail. So there's a lot of sketchy things going on. And I'm not too sure whether I think they're allowed to turn up. I don't think you can stop them having Sue Hall placards and things like that if they want to, as long as they're not being broadcast from outside the country. But that's the question. Is it being broadcast from outside the country or not? If it's YouTube and Facebook. And they're not allowed to actually help Sue Hall. You might say, well, either they've got placards themselves or they haven't got placards. Well, I think it's kind of different to, if... The thing is, with Labour, right, I think that it falls down to something around the subject of Labour have got their own material which they give out and it's all official and you can get it from the candidates, right? And then it's, you've gone and supported the campaign and they're giving you some flyers and so forth. But the thing is that people are making their own things to support Sue Hall, which aren't official ones, and then they're helping her canvass sort of like that, if you see what I mean. It's like unofficial, but it's so, you'd have to read this whole book in detail, and that's not my job. That is the job of, you see, I am not the person who's running the election, and I'm not the prosecutor. The prosecutor's meant to know all this, and the Attorney General or whatever, not me. That's not my job. If I knew all this, then I would be going into court and prosecuting him myself. I'm not going into court and prosecuting him. This is what the Attorney General is supposed to know, but we've got to know enough of it, so then when the Attorney General has to act and do something, they have to act, because then they can't say, once you've read this and you know what they're meant to do, then they can't say, oh, no, I'm not, I'm not going to do it, or we don't have to do it when they do. You have to know enough to know that then that there's something wrong and they need to act and intervene. It says that it's very easy to start these kind of prosecutions. It says they're not that difficult to start, but I've never heard of them before. I didn't really know of many elections that have been declared invalid in England. But this part here says that they're not supposed to have unofficial canvases and so forth. Now, at one point, Stop ULEZ was just all like Stop ULEZ, Stop ULEZ, Stop ULEZ, but then it kind of went on to, Get Khan Out. And because they're not only saying support Sue Hall, that actually, if they were of their own volition saying, we don't want people to vote for Khan, that's our own thing. Well, if they're saying, we all are citizens and we need to try and, we want to stop ULEZ. That's our petition to stop ULEZ. In order to do that, well, their petition to stop ULEZ is supposed to be submitted, and then it's supposed to get a resolution from the House of Commons because it's been submitted to the Commons, right? But they're not getting that action, and instead they say we've got to vote for Sue Hall. Now all the people are saying, well, they're not helping Carr now, and they're not particularly saying, oh, we're going to help Sue Hall if they just say get Carr out because any other candidates. But now they're starting to say support Sue Hall and get Carr out, and they're hanging around with Sue Hall, and they're clearly aiding Sue Hall. They're not acting as an individual citizen with their own opinion anymore. They're definitely assisting Sue Hall. It's a little bit, I think it's a bit different. I think you can have your own opinion and voice it, and even maybe put a placard, whatever, but I'm not too sure you're not meant to do it from outside England if it's being broadcast. It can be broadcast from inside England, but you're not meant to be actually helping the candidate. And I think they've crossed the line because they've actually, they're congregating and following her around and going to events together and assisting her to get elected and also preventing against Khan. And that's why I think that he's broken the rules, but, maybe they might not think that he has. But, as for what I've been doing, I mean, to be honest, I'm only focusing on petitions, not elections, but I ended up going on to elections a little bit. But I wouldn't say that it was like I wasn't actually helping the candidate blatantly. I was mainly expressing my own opinion, myself. And I think you can put that in England. You're allowed to. I'm pretty sure you can put that up. But there's a certain point where I'm not hanging around with the candidate or assisting their own campaign. Has the Get Susan Hall In campaign, has that gone beyond Stop ULEZ now, a petition to the government? Because the thing is, when they're petitioning the government, they're actually petitioning the council to act or Parliament to act. But now they're actually saying, they're actually helping Sue Hall to get elected, which is a different thing. They're doing a different thing now. They're all acting to get Sue Hall elected. So that is different. Because petitions are protected because you don't have any help. You've got to try and get help. Elections it's all run fairly and they've got specific set fundings and so forth, and they're not supposed to get additional extra help. That's the difference. That is the difference. So it needs looking into. I don't know whether to send it into the Crown Prosecution Service. I don't. It's meant to be the Attorney General who sorts it out, and for these things, I definitely think that. In fact, they could probably do good with reading this book. But I'm more interested in I'm actually more interested in this part of it to do with immunities and so forth for normal petitions to the government, which we don't know much about. But there's evidence in the election petition to government process of witness protection and immunities. If you're the person bringing the petition, you're the person with the evidence and you are a witness. That's the thing. And if everyone's signing it and supporting it and they're not forging their signature, there's not really much they can do. The thing is to do with Extinction Rebellion and all this of breaking windows and things like that. It all depends whether or not it falls under the campaign and promoting the campaign. They're pushing the boundaries with the definition of advertisement and installation of models and things like that. Exhibits in public, acting and theatrics in public, which all are protected, but they're really, 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 really stretching the boundaries of like abstract art. When you get into breaking windows, like it's a representation, it can have a meaning, like like a broken window. Particularly if it is being filmed, and you are allowed to film and share petitions, not elections, from outside the country. That's for sure. it is actually kind of complicated. There are a lot of legal arguments about it, but none of these legal arguments are getting discussed or even acknowledged in the courts. They're going on to other subjects like the subject matter of what the petition is about, which is that's not on trial. You know, in these election petition proceedings, they're not actually, they're just trying to see if there was any malpractice or anything done wrong. They're not actually asking people to go in and vote, are they? You know, that's separate. Or they're not promoting the election either.